How's everyone?
How are you? How's the jet lag?
It's kind of rough right now.
We've all been there, mate.
Yeah. No, I'm doing all right though. I just had some coffee, so. Okay. Does anybody want to ask me a question?
Can I ask you, and just to somebody talked about the photograph thing when they had that still.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of crucial that you had the still there? Do you think for the guys, for Peter Weber, for the actors?
Yeah, I think so.
And did they spend ages replicating it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did they spend a long time mirroring?
Yeah, no, I think there was I remember the moment that photo, when we took that photograph, when we did that scene, that photograph was present, and there was a lot of like sort of holding it up and making sure that the background and that everything was in the right position, and that Tommy and the actor that played Hirohito, that they sort of...
He was a kabuki actor, I believe.
Yes, very famous kabuki actor in Tokyo, yeah. I've forgotten his name, but he was fantastic.
And they just spent a long time getting the body language and the pose.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. It was a cool moment to be there for that, because it felt like, I don't know. And then, when we were in Tokyo, we got an opportunity to... to go to we had lunch with the ambassador there at MacArthur's residence.
Wow.
So we then had lunch in that room that photograph actually took. The
original,
that original photograph took place. So it was, that was in July when we were back there for the movie opening in Japan. So that was like really the story kind of coming full circle for me,
What was it like at the Tokyo premiere of the movie? I mean, it's already made a huge amount of money for Japanese cinema.
Yeah.
For a non-Japanese film. So, what memories do you have of that premiere?
That was the first time that I'd seen the movie. I don't normally watch the things that I'm in at all, but I felt like I should see this film.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see it in Japan. I wanted to see it with a Japanese audience for the first time. So I actually stayed that night and stayed in the theater and watched it, and it was a very intense experience, and it felt really rewarding. I felt like the audience, it felt like kind of like a release for them. I heard a lot of emotion in the theater, and the Japanese are very quiet people, and they don't like to show emotion very much. But there still was a lot of emotion, and it felt like there was a release, and it felt really good. It was a moment that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Japanese producer lady, again, I'm hopeless with these names, was it a relative of hers?
Yes.
Had actually worked for Hirohito?
I think it was a relative of hers had worked for, I'm trying to remember the names now, Suzuburo. Yeah. Worked for him who worked for Hirohito.
So
yes.
He was part of the
So
the
her
chain.
family is actually connected to, immediately connected to that.
It must have been really then a very, very big deal for her that this movie got made.
Yoko is really the reason the movie got made. I mean, she's been wanting to make this movie for many years, and she's done everything, getting the Japanese investors on board, and getting all the sort of permission that would be necessary for this type of storytelling to be told.
What do you mean, permission?
Well, all the permission. I mean, we
access to papers. Do you mean that sort of stuff?
Yes, and we were the first film crew that was ever allowed to shoot on the Imperial grounds.
Wow.
When we were done filming in New Zealand, we went to Japan and we shot in front of the Imperial Palace, but on the Imperial grounds. And we're the first. I mean, when you go visit the Imperial Palace, they won't even let you take photographs on the grounds. So I mean, you're allowed to go there and see it.
So it's kind of sacred ground.
So it's incredibly sacred.
Right. So we don't understand that Japanese philosophy. I'm not sure that Westerners can relate to it at all. It's really
no. I think it would be very difficult for us to completely relate to it. Yeah.
Because they view the emperor as a god.
They did in 1945. I mean, I think that if you talk to sort of younger generations of Japanese now, you probably, it's more of sort of like an idea of that.
Mm.
But yeah, in 1945, he was like a living god. I mean, they did view him that way, and they were sacrificing their lives en masse for him.
Mm. Your character in the film, General Bono Fellas, you're playing a person who actually really existed. When you're playing a real person, do you approach the role differently? Do you approach the preparation for the role differently than when you're playing a fictional character?
I think that depends on how much that person, how much people are aware of that person. This is the second time that I've done that. I did a movie called We Are Marshall where I played a guy by the name of Red Dawson, who's still alive, and so that experience was really interesting because while I was making the film, I was hanging out with Red, and so I felt an enormous obligation to him and to the people in that community that knew Red very, very well. This film was a little bit different for me because nobody really knows Bonner Fellers. They don't know who he is, and he feels like, when I first read the script, I thought it was a fictional character used as a tool to sort of move the narrative forward. Obviously, very quickly I found out that he was a real guy, but if you go do research on Fellers, there's not a lot out there about him. I mean, and really all you can find out about him is sort of a career highlight, sort of benchmark thing through his military career. You really don't find out much about him as a person at all. I mean, he was essentially a spy. I mean, in 1945 and prior, 10 years prior, 15 years prior to that, I mean, he was working in the intelligence community, and so there's really not a lot known about him. And so, as an actor, you have to ask yourself, well, am I going to go down this road of researching a guy and finding out all this stuff about him that I might incorporate in my performance that is going to mean nothing to anyone? Or am I going to stay focused on sort of just having a blank slate of telling the story in the very best way that I can, serving the story the very best way that I can? And I think I made that decision rather than sort of trying to do research that might just get in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't base it on the character, but you still had to stay within that historical period, and that accuracy is really important. And how did you prepare for that?
Most of that is somebody else's preparation. I mean,
did you have consultants with you?
Well, I mean, we had the best in every category. I mean, the woman doing the wardrobe is a Oscar winner. The guys doing the set, and I've forgotten his name, but is Oscar winner. I mean, these people were making sure that this stuff looked and felt and had an atmosphere and was period correct to the T. I mean, they were very, very detail oriented. So for me, I knew I was going to be wearing the right stuff. I knew that everything around me, everything in the world around me would be spot on. For me, it was really just trying to capture what that man would be like in 1945. And so that was the challenge. I mean, I think that love has sort of changed a bit in 70 years. I mean, I really felt like the love between Aya and Fellers, and the way that I wanted to try to that to be sort of like a timeless kind of epic love between two people of two completely different cultures that then go to war. I felt I wanted to try to capture a sort of an innocence and a chivalry, and in that relationship, and then trying to get the broken Fellers in 1945, a guy that's been broken by war, broken by the loss of the love of his life, broken by watching and sending men underneath him to death. I wanted to try to have a juxtaposition between those two people.
What's the shot all about? Come on.
The what?
These ladies don't understand the importance of the insignia
Oh, this?
you're wearing, yes.
Do we know?
But you're not, you can't have been to football. No.
That's Arsenal.
Like, why Arsenal? A man that lives in Hawaii supporting Arsenal, what's that all about?
I've been a soccer fan since meeting my Italian wife when I was 20 years old. I fell in love with soccer through her passion for Italian nationals and watching the World Cup.
Right.
But I've always wanted to root for an English Premier League team because more soccer is better. So I wanted to fall in love with an English Premier League team. And when I came to here to do a play in 2011, and I was in the West End, and I was here for 6 months, and I lived in Marylebone. And I asked around, and I said, if I live here, where? And they were like, you should be rooting Arsenal. So I went to an Arsenal match, and I'm walking into the stadium, and I meet Thierry Henry.
Right.
And Thierry Henry says, why don't you come watch the match in my box? So we go into his player's box and we watch the match. And then he says, yeah, I know. And he says, oh, this is yours anytime you want it. So I spent the next 6 months watching Arsenal matches from Thierry Henry's box. So that's why I'm Arsenal.
I'm very envious.
You're going to catch a game. You're going to catch a game while you're here. Are you here long enough?
I saw the match last night. I mean, I wish this leg had been here at Emirates. That would have been perfect. But I leave on Friday. I leave tomorrow morning, so I'll have to watch the Stoke Arsenal match on Sunday from TV.
Well, he's
at
a
home.
proper fan. He knows the fixtures now. Sorry.
Oh, I don't miss a match. If I can't watch it live, it's recorded.
Okay.
What were some of your